Does everybody know what time it is? No. So wrong. Let me try that again. Does everybody know what time it is?
Yo, Joe!
That's right. We are going to review this Prime 1 Studios G.I. Joe piece. It's actually the 4th G.I. Joe piece in my collection, and it is my 5th review on G.I. Joe pieces. So if you can't do the math on that, the reason why is I've already reviewed this guy once. Unfortunately, the microphone was on mute. So that's all you would have heard and seen. It's always very discouraging as a YouTuber, but I figured it's time to do it again. So let's do it again, and here we go. Mr. X, this is the Extreme channel. Today we're going to talk about a new piece in the Extreme collection. As I said in the intro, it's not necessarily new, it's a few weeks old. It's also been released for quite a while, so you may have seen other pictures or other videos of it, but thanks for tuning in. So this is from G.I. Joe, obviously. We're going to get into that. So first thing I'm going to ask you guys, who was your favorite G.I. Joe character? Go ahead and post that in the comments below. Snake Eyes was probably my favorite of the heroes, which we're going to talk about. So this is a quarter scale Snake Eyes statue from Prime 1 Studios G.I. Joe line. What does all that mean? Well, first of all, quarter scale means he's 4 times smaller than what he'd be in real life. Prime 1 Studios is the company that manufactured and distributes these statues. They do, however, use a number of other distributors. For example, they used to use Sideshow Collectibles, the largest licensed company, manufacturer and distributor, which is where I got him from. And I actually ordered him from both Prime 1 and Sideshow, directly from Prime 1. But Prime 1 had him in stock, and after 7 months of no shipping, I canceled it with a full refund, and I nabbed him from Sideshow Collectibles, and he got here a few days later. G.I. Joe is it's a lot of things, actually. They are in comics, there's a live-action cartoon, they're a series and movie, there are live-action movies. They're essentially an elite branch of the government, kind of black ops. And the way they really fight battles is they know. And knowing is half the battle. And the other half, I heard from someone, is kicking the shit out of your enemy, which I couldn't agree with more. Knowledge and power. But this is the 4th piece I've added to the Extreme collection. I've reviewed all the other ones, so go check out Serpentor, the leader of the Cobra. Cobra is the adversary to the G.I. Joes. There is Destro, and there is Storm Shadow, who is actually the direct adversary to Snake Eyes. They are both ninjas, and they actually work really well facing off together, which we're going to talk about. Prime 1 Studios made 850 of these pieces. There's 2 different versions, a collector's, which they made 500, and an exclusive, which they made 350. The exclusive has an additional portrait we're going to look at during design. Price was the same on both of them. They made, our price was $6.99, I believe. It's either $5.99 or $6.99. You can use a magical tool called Google to check if you really want to know. And I'm really excited because I think Prime 1 Studios is one of the best in the game, and this statue is no exception. They did a lot of really, really good things with this piece. And as usual in the review today, when we jump into that, we're going to use the Extreme scale. If you've never seen it or need a reminder, here it is right here. Left is bad, T, trash, that's kind of a 1 out of 5, and it goes all the way up to X, or extreme, which is a 5 out of 5. And when we score something in the middle as a V, very nice, that's a good score. That does not mean it's a bad statue. Before we dive into that, let's look at the dimensions of this guy, because he is huge. As you see, there's a lot going on with the base, which we're going to talk about when we get to the concept and design. But I'd say his widest points are about 19 inches. And for exact measurements, you can check out Prime 1 Studios website. The depth is about 16, and that's from the farthest jutting out points. And on his, he's about 23 inches tall. And I purchased him because I have kind of a nostalgic cartoons 1990s display. And here's a picture of him with some of the other pieces. I recently sold my Lion-O and Mumra because I'm getting some other Thundercats in, and then also some other Masters of the Universe. You see a Skeletor right there. Snake Eyes is an elite ninja. He is also mute, so he uses multiple weapons, which there's a ton of switch outs we're going to talk about. And one of the favorites of most people who are fans of G.I. Joe, and it's probably because of he's one of the most highlighted characters because he uses those ninja abilities, and he's very mysterious without speaking, and just his costume, you never see his face. But let's talk about that with the concept. And what Prime One Studios has been doing with all this line is they'll have a similar type sub base, and then they all have their own theme bases, which I don't know if I'm a fan of because they're all going together, so they semi go together, but they semi do not go together. So for example, his main adversary is Storm Shadow, and they look fantastic facing off against each other. Here's a picture of that. However, apparently Snake Eyes is in Canada and Storm Shadow is in Florida. But I really can't fault them, and I'm okay with mixing bases together as long as they don't take away from the character, which I'll talk about in this piece. So looking at the concept, starting down here at the base, he's in a wooded, mountainous, snowy area. And this seems very fitting for Snake Eyes. He has his wolf Timber, is the name of his wolf, by his side. Almost never leaves his side, which really adds to the statue as well. And he is fully decked out in attack mode. And you have a few different switch outs we're going to look at, which may determine a little bit of the concept of this. But he has guns all over him, and swords, and pouches, and grenades. And he is full out ready to fight, ready to battle. And they did a great job really encompassing Snake Eyes. I like the fact that they did add Timber to it because he's done really well in the paint and sculpt. I like the base to an extent. It's done really well, but we'll talk more about that. So conceptually, I think they hit it on the head because with G.I. Joes, do you put them in their base? So is their, statue base, their base of where they hang out at? You got to figure out something for that. And they do show his athleticism without making him look stupid. They do show his martial arts ability, and it's classic Snake Eyes costume. So I think conceptually they hit the nail on the head, and I'm going to give them a W, a 4 out of 5 on the concept. Now the design, there's a lot of things going on, both positive and negative, and I always hate this. I hate when there's an awesome part of one category and then a negative part, because you really don't know where to score it. It inevitably almost ends in the middle, which I don't know. As we talk through this, we're going to kind of figure it out. First with the design is they offered you tons of switch outs with this piece, which I really appreciate, and even if you did not get the exclusive. So let's talk about the switch outs that come with every single statue. First is Timber. The wolf has 2 portraits, believe it or not. First is this open mouth, growling, on the attack portrait, and I think it looks great. I think it's the one to go with. We'll look at it in paint and sculpt. And then you have a closed mouth growling one, which also looks very cool. However, with this, there is a nasty seam on the fur. They did a decent job covering it, but it's still there. In my opinion, they should have just done one switch out in one entire piece. So I think it's actually a knock on the design that they gave it too. Other switch out options: on his right hand, he can be holding this katana, this sword, or he can be holding a smaller pistol. His left hand has very similar options where he can hold a katana, a sword, and then an automatic weapon here. This is the normal portrait that every single piece comes with. However, if you got the exclusive, then this ski mask type version is available. And I'm not a big fan of this. I like that it goes with the base, but it's really not needed. Definitely not an exclusive or fail. Another issue I have with the base is, or the design, the base is way too much. It's done really well. And we're going to emphasize and talk about that in the paint and sculpt. But not only the 2 inches on the bottom, but how far it goes up here, and so much different elaborate stuff going on. And I know you got to add more to Snake Eyes, otherwise he's boring. But this is a situation where a base is at least 50%, if not more, of the statue, and I think it takes away too much of the character. So I think that's a knock on the design as well. Another design issue that I have is apparently there's wolf poop all over the back. Here's a close-up right here. I don't understand. This could be a QC issue, so someone let me know if you own this. I have no idea what this is. It's totally unnecessary. It looks stupid. It could be more paint and sculpt, but I'm putting it with the design. So because of all that, I think I'm going to have to rate the design on this piece. I'm going to put it right in the middle. As I said, it probably would be a V, because it is very elaborately done. I think they almost tried to do too much. Now let's jump into the paint and sculpt of this statue together, and we will grade them separately at the end. And Prime 1 is really known for both of these categories, paint and sculpt. And this one's a little more difficult because on Snake Eyes himself, first of all, he's mostly black. And not only is black very hard to do, but there's not really a lot of variation. And we'll talk about it. They did a great job. So that's one issue. With the sculpt too, you don't have any portraits. We're still going to see some anatomy, and obviously there's some great sculpt and stuff going on the bottom. But it's just not like a traditional review, and there's a lot to go over, so I should stop yapping and just start. So let's do that. On the bottom here, just like all of the other G.I. Joe pieces, this is what I call the sub base. And it's kind of the base underneath the base. I don't think this is needed. It's got this metallic hint to it, with some grays and silvers and some weird designs. Reminds me of like what a bad guy's hideout would be, or possibly where the G.I. Joe base would be. And on the front of it, they have, I believe this is Snake Eyes' symbol. The symbol of his house or something of that nature. I like the fact that it's red. It adds more to the statue, and we're going to see the same symbol on Snake Eyes himself. But at the normal base, I want to look at the snow first here. They did a really, really good job with the snow. It looks like real snow. I like the crystal effect that they added, how it's bunched up in different areas. And I believe the snow is actually not part of the sculpt. It's painted on after the fact. I could be wrong. But another cool part of the snow is all the snow sickles. Truly not icicles, but it's kind of dripping down on the backs of the cave and the log. Snow effect looks really good. I'm very impressed. Prime 1 seems to have that down. And then next on the base, let's look at this rock that it's on. The sculpt on it is okay. I wish it would have been a little more texturized. It is on the sides, but not on the tops. But one of the really cool thing they added is there's a glistening snow melt white effect, kind of this clear resin throughout. I think that was smart. It looks really good. It follows the fact that the snow is right above it. And then the colors, I think, are very good too. I think they did a great job on the paint. Different grays and whites that are kind of mixed in there. Looks like real rock. And they did an equally good job on the logs here. There's great grains in it, and again, there's that white snow glistening effect. They almost, towards the bottom of some of these, they did almost a green effect. And then look where the logs are broken off. It looks fantastic. Great sculpt, great paint in there. Then let's look at timber. You know, it's always hard to sculpt a fully furred animal or creature. But they did a good job with him. I like the flow of his hair. I think there could have been a little more individualized, but he shouldn't be the star of the show. See his paws, it's the white, as you see. It reminds me of the one from Dances with Wolves. And moving up on timber here again, his fur above, just that darker color, looks great. It is sculpted, so it looks great for sculpted fur, including his tail. His portrait they did, and this is just the open mouth version one. it is a absolute knockout. They did a great job. Look at the eyes, great wolf eyes. Great expression on it. His nose looks like a real nose. Really cool job on, I wish they would have done a little bit better on the gums and the tongue, but I like his expression on his teeth. Crazy nuts. Then with Snake Eyes at his boots right here, kind of interesting boots. They're a mix between ninja boots, almost looks like snowshoes, and there's an interesting thing going on with the paint here. There's dust painted into them. I wasn't sure what it was at first, but it definitely is painted in, and I don't like it. I think that's a little bit of miss. I don't understand it. I don't know why they did that, because they wouldn't be dusty if he was working in the snow. But it looks okay, very wide, because it looks like he has some snowshoes, those metallic things on the edges. And as you move up, it's kind of a different color where the top of the boot is, which is interesting to me. There's no dust or anything like that. Some folds in between it. It looks okay. Not a huge fan of these. I do like the straps that are sculpted in at the top. This statue is fully sculpted. But as you move up and you see his pants that are tucked into his boots, there's some cool linear texture on there, some vertical texture. All these folds where it's bunched in together looks really good. Great sculpt. It seems like it's almost a different shade of black than the boots. It's not as shiny. Maybe it's the texture doing that. But then he has knee pads. I don't know why all these statues have knee pads, but apparently you need them if you're kicking enemies' asses because your knees get hurt. They look great. This older, metallic, dirty, worn hint to them, and there's this some dents and scratches, and then the straps that are holding them on, pulling them back through the bunched up pants, look really good. And he has some more straps right above that on his thighs. On one side it's holding this pouch that looks, again, Prime 1 does fantastic jobs with pouches. Who knows what's in there? Ammo. The other side is a handgun. He's fully decked out. Cool strap on the case of that. Check out his crotch area here. Apparently he's not well endowed. Sometimes statue manufacturers like to make huge packages. That is not the case here. Can't even see it. Sounds like I'm disappointed, doesn't it? But again, there's all these folds and you see that cool texture. And the color's the same throughout. And then on his belt here, he has tons of different stuff. And the belt looks great. There's this clasp on the front, kind of this old metallic, reminds me of the knee pads and one of this other parts we're going to see on his torso. Some more pouches, all different sizes. Most of them are black. One looks like it could be a flashlight. One looks like it could be an ammo pack. And then on the side here, he has some grenades. And I like how one of the pouches is bending in motion. Kind of helps follow the flow of the statue. And the grenades look great. On his back, he has another, looks like an Uzi hanging from the back. Again, he's just weaponed the shit out. Looks good. All black, of course, to help him camouflage. And then he has a backpack that's sculpted in really well, and his sheaths on top of it. And what's interesting is the sheaths for his swords here, they're actually different, but the sword hilts were different as well. And I can't remember if I have pictures of both, but we'll find out in a second. Then moving back to his front torso, you can see a lot of anatomy here underneath his suit, which I like, especially on the sides. You kind of see those muscles and bones. And you see a six-pack directly underneath. And there's a few folds in the suits. And he has two straps, one vertical, one kind of diagonal, and the diagonal one with that metallic feel behind it and some different types of grenades on it. I like how all these weapons and pouches are everywhere, but it doesn't overpower the figure. Then moving up to his shoulder, here's that symbol I talked about that they have on the front of the base. I assume it's his symbol. It's no bat symbol. Then moving down his arm again, great job on the anatomy, the flow of the costume. He's got some more straps. I don't know why he's protecting his forearm. And then on his wrist, and this is just his right wrist here, he has kind of this rocket. And if I remember correctly, that shoots out these metal gauntlets here. But really interesting hilt on the sword. His finger sculpt's okay. Here's the blade of the sword. Then on his other hand, he has another pouch on it, kind of this protective gauntlet. And then again, on his automatic gun, his Uzi here, it looks fine. I mean, it's not amazing. It's all black once again. And then here's his normal portrait. I like this. Classic Snake Eyes. Reminds me a lot of the movie. Reminds me a lot of the character. Kind of his visor is kind of a mix between Geordi from Star Trek, and there's someone else that it really reminds me of. Let me know in the comments who you think that is. But his mask sculpted. You can see some folds in it. A little bit of a Cyclops look on the ears of his visor. Then here's the exclusive portrait. This looks more like not a material, but like a hard helmet that he has on. Kind of very reminiscent of ski. I like the texture on it. I just will never display this. I like the fact it does go with the bottom of the statue. So very cool piece. I think he's probably my second favorite with Storm Shadow being the first. But I think with the sculpt, I'm actually going to give them for a rating. When I look at the base and some of the really cool stuff they did, the portrait of Timber, the anatomy below the costume, the folds in his costume, I think I got to give it a W. I think it's a 4 out of 5. They knocked it out of the park. Really well done. And then the paint, that shit I showed in the design kind of takes away from it. The paint on the dust on the boots I don't understand. Timber, I think they could have done a better job highlighting some of the paint to make it look more like fur. That kind of stuff would have been much better. And the fact that he's all black, it's really hard to knock it out of the park. But I think the paint's a solid V right in the middle. Overall, I think I'm going to give this piece, I'm going to start grading pieces harder. That's not what she said, because that wouldn't work, but it was so close. It was so close. I'm going to start grading pieces harder. This is one of those ones I think it'd fall between a V and a W, right in the middle, a 3 or a 4. But I think moving forward, when it falls in between those two, I'm going to always go with the lower grade. So that way we're not giving away participation ribbons. So I think overall this statue is a V. It's very nice. It's my second favorite of the line. Really excited to have it. It's really cool too that my favorite of the line is Storm Shadow, and these two pair so well together. So very stoked about that. But really appreciate you guys watching. Again, let me know your thoughts on this piece, if you've seen any. I think one cool thing about this is it's a 1/4 scale with a very huge elaborate base, and it was still only $700, where it seems like now the 1/4 scale with elaborate bases, Predator and Dragon Ball Z, are, you know, twice that, if not more. But happy to own it, and he's going to stay in the Extreme collection. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Please subscribe if you have not before, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care.